Welcome to the Berea Podcast. As 2017 comes to a close, we are going to re-release some of our favorite episodes over the past year, hoping to share some of our favorite old episodes with new listeners. So enjoy this, one of our favorite episodes of 2017. Welcome to the next Berea Podcast.
Troy, back in April, you went on a tour of Berea on a bus. Is that right?
Right, absolutely. Doesn't everybody do that when it's offered?
So who organized this tour?
Sure. April was Fair Housing Month, and in honor of that, Kentucky's, Lexington's, and Berea's Fair Housing Council all together put this bus tour on here in Berea. I saw it and I wanted to know more about Berea's history, particularly in this area, so I signed up and it was beyond expectations.
So where did you all meet for this tour?
We met out at Indian Fort Theater at the Forestry Center that hadn't opened yet, so we got to see it before its actual grand opening. That was kind of cool.
So what kind of bus was it? So like one of those Greyhound buses or a big fancy tour bus or a school bus?
It was a big fancy tour bus that had TVs, and there were microphones that our hosts spoke into that they could tell everybody what we're seeing.
Oh, so you had guides at the front?
Absolutely. Our two guides who were awesome was Jackie Burnside, who's a professor at Berea College, and also a historian that works in special collections at the Berea College Library, Sharon Mitchell.
How many people were on the tour with you?
Okay, so I'm horrible with numbers, but it was a chartered bus. And I think those hold 48 people.
I have no idea.
Okay, and we were mostly full on that, so it was around 40 people.
And how long was the tour?
It was all morning. We got there at about 8:30ish or so, and then went on to right before noon.
Okay, so where did you just go around the different streets of Berea, or was this?
Right, we met inside that Forestry Center, and there was a little bit of conversation about the history of Berea, why Berea was founded. And where we were college students, we're very aware of John G. Fee being an abolitionist and came to Berea, got the land from Cassius Clay to say, I want to build a community where, blacks and whites are educated together. And that was very novel at the time. And then it went off from there.
So I know you've brought back some recordings from your tour, right? From the guides, what they taught you about Berea's history, right?
Absolutely. I was on the tour, and at some point I thought, this is so amazing, more than 40 people should hear about it. I thought I would bring it to the show. So I started recording. I'm sorry that they're not the best audio quality, because you're going to hear the bus in the background, and you're not going to hear the whole beginning to end. But
so you didn't get it right from the beginning. It just sort of occurred to you. Okay, I see. Yeah.
And so you'll hear her describe, well, here we are in front of Boone Tavern. So let your theater of the mind, take you to those places. There's enough landmarks. And think about the last time that you were there, and you can visualize what they're talking about. There'll be a house, when she says on Center Street. There'll be, coming up Chestnut Street. They'll make reference to the Catholic Church. So there are landmarks, but there's stories behind all of these places. And again, it's just amazing. I hope everyone enjoys it as much as I do.
And this is the kind of thing, I know when we started doing the podcast, one of the things we wanted to do was to be more engaged in the community so we could learn more. And you always say, I really like knowing the stories behind the places. Like, that used to be where so-and-so was. And so this seems like this was right up your alley.
Oh, I loved the whole morning, and I'm excited that I'm able to share it now.
Okay. So what's the first clip you're going to play for us?
We got on the bus. We came up from the forest. The recording was right as we were going down in front of the College Square shops. So they'll make
so where are
reference
you
to
heading?
Boone
So like if I'm on the bus to my right.
Would we be sitting together?
Yes, but
Great.
You could not talk to me.
Okay.
If I'm on the bus to my right, would that be Boone Tavern?
Exactly.
And we're heading that direction down where all the shops are on my right.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Great.
And so they'll make reference to Boone Tavern at the beginning of the recording, and then as they go through, they'll go talk about an archway, and it's at the other end of the College Square shops.
Okay. Great.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
Here it comes.
For those that don't know, Boone Tavern, the Elder Frost, President Frost's wife, was tired of them bringing so many people home for her to have to wait on and serve. So she suggested that they start a hotel. I think the beginnings of that was about 1890 something, and I think it went into business in about early 1906 or so. At one point, I'm sorry, 09. At one point, if you'll look along here, there's shops, there were stores, there was a grocery, there were 2 groceries, there was a laundry, a dry cleaners, the arch building, the arch here to the front was a bank. I'm not sure where the old post office was, but there was a post office. It might be here on the corner.
The college post office is over there, right on that corner.
It originally was in the tavern.
But the original one was in the tavern.
The original post office was in the tavern.
On campus. And then there was one uptown on Chestnut.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll see the one uptown on Chestnut in a few minutes.
My favorite part of all of that was the people on the bus chiming in with their knowledge and memories of where things used to be. I just love when people in a community all come together and they share their memories that way. It feels like home.
And it was like that the whole time, that there was, when someone didn't know something, someone on the bus could chime in and give a little more information.
I just love it. I don't know the arch that they're speaking of. So it's not an arch that goes over the street. Obviously, there's no arch over the street in Berea. So is it an archway that's built into those shops that you'll see it in the stonework or something?
I think it's the Appalachian Fireside Gallery that's there. That used to be the bank. But I can't wait to give people directions, when they come and, just roll down their window and ask. And I don't say turn at Boone Tavern, but I want to say you turn where the post office used to be. I can't wait for that.
Now, not the one that's uptown.
Right.
Yes. Now we can do that, right?
Absolutely. All right. So we go past the shops. We've turned and we're going down Center Street. And they're going to talk a little bit about Center Street and its history. So
Center Street, that's the street that runs. If you turn at the corner, right at the end of the white shops or that Fireside Galleries, you turn right then and you stay to the right, right? You don't head down to 25, but you stay on your right. Down is okay.
Absolutely.
This Center Street was an interracial street. It helped create part of the checkerboard pattern, the racially interspersed housing. One of the black families that lived here was Reverend Anderson Crawford. Thank you, Reverend Anderson Crawford. I think they had maybe 11 children, and they were able to go to Berea College before the 1904 Day Law. And on the corner here is a house on the right that was built by a Berea College student who came from South Carolina, Robert Doe, D-O-E, and he married a lady from Richmond, and they raised their children there on the corner. We were able to interview Mrs. Lovely Bernice Doe Baxter, and she told us the joys of growing up here in Berea and the interracial playmates that they had, and what a good time it was. So she described the day law because it prevented her from attending Berea College when she was older as a very mean-spirited law. She's 104 years old and lives in Louisville.
Don't you feel like now you've got like some history of Center Street? How often have we driven down? But now we know the Does, that they're on the corner of the Does house.
Mm-hmm. And that checkerboard, I love the way she described that, the checkerboard interspersing of the races for the families. But my favorite is the name of Lovely Bernice Doe Baxter. We just don't have names like that anymore. People just don't give their children Lovely Bernice Doe. That's just a lovely name. I think that is full of story, and that she's 104 years old. I mean, that name is full of story.
I agree. Now, this is where the location gets a little bit fuzzy, because we were on Center Street and then we went over towards like the industrial area of town. So I don't know exactly the specific areas of these recordings, but it's working from Center Street on down to exit 76 and in the industrial area. Okay.
Is exit 76 like if you're coming from Lexington, is that the first exit?
Yes.
For Berea? Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. I would say on down would be south on 75, but I see what you mean. Okay.
All right, here we go.
That you want to know about the Glades Road, it was interracially interspersed, the housing. I was with Mrs. Kennedy last night, who's 92 years old, and she described this. Basically, they were big enough to be farmland, small farms, and she described the families that were on either side. And as she named them, she would tell me this one was black and this one was white, this one was black, this one was white, but we all grew up as family and neighbors and friends. When the new post office, this is the one that's in operation now, they was created. There to the left is a cemetery marker. They discovered that there were several graves in there, over 300, I think, and where the post office is.
Well, let me clear my name there. I know how to get to the post office. I don't know how the bus got there, and I don't. So there is that marker that's beside the post office there. I saw that, and I could get back there, but then we go further.
Okay, because I'm like, I know where Glades Road is. How do you not know that? Because you're like 1,000 times better with directions than me. So, okay.
But then now we continue on, okay?
That the oldest building that was moved from the campus, it was an old store and was moved down here and served as a residence for the Gentry family. The church you see here is the First Baptist Church of Berea, 1894. In looking at the church history for that church, the original pews were borrowed from the tab at Berea College.
What? Tab? I don't know what that is.
All of these were residences here.
That big tabernacle building. Oh.
So, is that you on the recording saying tab? What's a tab?
Right. I'm thinking of the Lee Majors commercial of Tab from the 70s.
And if I'm not mistaken, that is our Reverend Mark Caldwell Rice letting you know tab meant the tabernacle.
Correct. in His Holiness, yes. And I think they were talking about, of course, Phelps Stokes.
You think they got the pews from Phelps Stokes? Well, I don't know. I'm curious. Here is something that I would like to research for the next few episodes. Tabernacle would seem to me to have a particular meaning to it. So I'm curious about where the tabernacle was on the campus. Maybe it was Phelps Stokes. Maybe it was someplace else.
Is that some research?
That's some research.
Are you accepting it for a future episode?
Yes, I'm going to find out what is tabernacle.
Tab.
We assume it's tabernacle. The tab on the college. I thought it was like a student get-together place.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
with pews.
I don't know. It could have been.
Okay. So report back to us in future episodes, okay?
I will.
So we continue out towards the interstate.
Round building here was the Foley store. This corner was the home of Red Foley, Clyde Foley, the musician, A Peace in the Valley. Ada Stillo Bly was one of the black families that went to Berea and actually did music, and she taught him piano. This is Bly, what they used to call Blytown, where there were several Bly families that lived down in this lane.
So is that the same Red Foley that is the Red Foley related to the house that our neighbors just moved into on Fee Street?
Yes, absolutely.
So, meaning, I don't understand the connection. Did Red Foley live in both those houses, or he just had family in one house? I'm confused.
Right. The family was in the house on Fee Street. His actual boyhood home, and there's Kentucky state plaque that's out there.
Oh.
It's out as you're going towards that exit.
Oh.
And
we should get a picture of that and put it up.
Okay. But then it's neat as they talk about that, this, bluegrass, country artist who's incredibly well known was taught by Miss Blythe here in Berea.
Oh, cool. Yeah. But it is neat that also Red Foley has connections to Fee Street as well.
True.
And we've heard about that. So that's neat. That's neat to start as newcomers sort of to Berea for us to say, oh, we have it. That's the same. They had a connection. We can start making our own connections where we know the people who live in so-and-so's house now. So that's neat.
Absolutely. So there were some interesting things about Blytown, the recording about Foley, that all of these were separate little towns out on the outskirts of Berea. Not Foleytown, Ferristown, Blythetown, as they were mentioned, Bobtown. They were separate little communities. Middletown, exactly. Mm-hmm. Separate, throughout just 2 square miles. So I thought that was pretty cool. All right, so we continued towards town and then went out into Old Town and around, coming up through Chestnut. So they reference a nursery that's just past on the right where the community school is, coming around Ellipse. So that's where we are here.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The features of any town is their skyline, and you can see the tower from Draper from almost anywhere in town. So it's iconic. At one point, right here on the right, was a nursery, a tree nursery for the college. So that's why the trees are just kind of like thrown in there. These were babies at some point, and when they stopped having the nursery, we're going to turn now into the older residences of Berea. This is Jefferson Street, and at some point we are going to pull over. Okay, the house on your right is the home of Miss Mary Elizabeth Ballard Denny. She was the first person in the first class to return to Berea after the day law was amended. She's now 92, and she just couldn't be with us on the tour today, but she's still active, still drives, and still plays the piano. All of these were houses in and out here, and we do have the plats for those. On the right is Echo Village, and Jackie will tell you more about those.
The left. The college, as part of our sustainability, we've been doing quite a bit over the years, and this was a merit student housing trailers during the and Quonset huts during the World War II era, and now housing for any non-traditional students, so single parents, mother or father single parents, or married couples with children attending Berea College. One member of the family must be a Berea College student to be eligible for housing here. There's this great child development lab, the yellow and pastel color building that we just saw there. Students who major in child development, child and family studies, do part of their student labor there. And on the opposite side is the Russell Acton Folk Center. Is one of the areas that the city is able to offer exercise classes as well as rent to groups for activities, including weddings. We missed our turn. So we're going to continue on, because we would turn around and come back. We're going to continue on Jefferson Street here as it turns into Prince Royal Drive.
At one point on the true right along the railroad, the railroad was a major industry as far as employment for Berea, aside from the college. And the houses where the apartments are now were actually what they call railroad houses, where the people that were working on the railroad, they were transient, but they would have a place to stay. One of the things about when we talked about Miss Denny's house, that house was actually deeded to her by Matilda Fee. On the other side where we talked about the Echo Village, when we made that first turn, was owned by the Moran family, and that the Morans were deeded their property, came through John G. Fee, and their oldest son, John G. Fee Everline Fairchild Moran, was actually named by John G. Fee. And those families are still here and around Berea.
I think the money of Matilda Fee made so many things possible. And
there are various habitat houses in and around on the left and right. On the left and right, and then there's a major subdivision that's back in to the right.
She did give you a picture of going down Jefferson Street. What I do just want to point out here is that they didn't have notes, and they weren't flipping through some other book. They were just pointing at what they saw, and they told stories about what they saw, and they remembered names.
Oh yeah, Mary Lou Denton, who's 92 years old, still drives a car. Actually, I'm also very interested in learning more about Matilda Fee. I heard one of the people who were riding on the bus mention that she thought that Matilda Fee's estate or money, I'm not sure which word she used, but had really made a lot of things possible in and around. So I thought that was sort of interesting. I wonder if there's been any kind of biography written of her, or and what her legacy has been specifically. Because I know they mentioned that she had...
Write it down.
That she had mentioned that... one of the speakers had mentioned that Matilda Fee had deeded the house to one of the people. So I thought that was interesting. So was Matilda Fee John G. Fee's spouse or child?
Wife.
Okay.
All right. Let's go on.
We're now turning left onto Chestnut Street, which at one point they was petitioned to be renamed as West Main, and they voted it down. So it is our main street, but it is Chestnut Street. At the top of the hill, on the right is the US 25, the old US 25, also Dixie Highway that the mayor talked about. The section that was called the concrete is down there, and it does loop back around. But it's the old US 25 and the Dixie Highway. For those of you who don't know, the Dixie Highway, I think, goes all the way to Alabama and maybe up as far as Canada. So this is and was a tourist route from early days. And I wish the mayor or someone else could tell me a little bit more about these businesses and whatever as we go through here.
Our Gold Star Chili was rebuilt on the site of the old Kentucky fried chicken place, which many of us were sad to see. Carrie's going to come and give us some updates here. Carrie Hensley with our Berea Tourism Commission.
So when you see our L&N station, it's a 1907 building that was remodeled in 2011. So this year is our 100-year anniversary. On the first Saturday in June, we're going to have our celebration. It's L&N Day that we normally do, only we're going to kick it up a notch. So put that on your calendars and come and join us for a fun day on the first Saturday in June.
When did it stop taking on passengers? And
Does anybody know when the railroad stopped taking on passengers? 1968.
Wow.
On the left that we didn't mention when we came in is the Catholic Church. Okay. And they were, and the Catholic were very active with the Christian Appalachian Project. I know that when in the 60s, when they had the civil rights marches and whatever, the priest there was very active.
Father Biding.
Father Biden, yes.
Oh, really? So it seems like that railroad was pretty important to Berea. And now we've got this event coming up at the 1st of June.
First Saturday in June. I just put it on my calendar.
It's going to happen?
Yep, and they're going to kick it up a notch. That sounds fun.
And we continue on down Chestnut Street.
So when you say down, wait.
We're towards Berea College's campus.
So you've turned left or right?
Right. We just went past the Catholic Church with it on the left, so we're going towards campus.
The Berea Baptist Church is to your left. We have the movie house now that houses Noodles Nirvana. It was the Berea Theater. It was a segregated theater back in the 60s where the black could buy their ticket and go upstairs. But basically the college, to go around that, they just started, they had movies at the college, and this was considered off campus.
I remember when we were students at Berea, we saw movies in Phelps Stokes. Do you remember that?
I did, but I didn't know it. Its history went back to showing movies on campus was to get around segregated movie theaters.
Is that what that was? Is that why?
That's what she just said. And
I didn't know she said that, or was that did she say that? I just thought she said that you saw this was considered off campus and you could see movies on campus. I said, I guess so. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah.
Oh, I did not know either. Do you remember AVS? We had to test off being able to show the movies in Phelps Stokes when we were students here.
I never did.
You never tested off?
No.
I did. I sweated bullets. Anyway.
On the left is Lincoln Hall, which is one of the oldest buildings on campus. But to the right is Fairchild Hall, which is the oldest building on campus. It's it was originally called Ladies Hall.
Thanks to Mrs. Frost.
It was modeled after a building at Oberlin College. If you can imagine this fine building sitting in the middle of mud and whatever, that's how the history talks about it. But it really enticed a lot of people to come to Berea, considering that they would have been in one-room houses with, outbuildings and so forth.
So if you go by Fairchild Hall, there are concrete steps where people getting out of their carriages can take the steps down to the ground. So we're talking, there's this amazing structure with wrought iron porch and, several flights in the middle of practically a forest with dirt road. And you took your carriage to get here. That really, put it into context.
When she said they would get out in their mud, if you could imagine that. Mm-hmm.
So that was not even a quarter of the information that was shared during the bus ride. I encourage everyone to come, and the next time it's advertised, get on the bus Berea, fill up that bus. It's truly amazing, gives you a sense of place and a sense of history. And that's actually the question that I want to leave you with. We know what historians say about the people that founded Berea, and I wonder what historians are going to say about us.
I think that's a great way to end the show. Thanks, Tori, for doing this and having the sort of the inspiration during it to start recording. Thanks.
Not a problem. See you next time.
Bye.